Exactly 100 years ago, in the year 1926, in a small mountainous village, lived a young orphan named Anand. Anand was extremely kind-hearted but deeply impoverished. One day, while cleaning the old library of the village landlord's mansion, he found a strange silver pocket watch hidden inside a crack in the wall. It was no ordinary watch. It didn't tick, but instead emitted a soft melodic tune. The moment Anand touched the watch, the air around him seemed to freeze. He realized this watch was calling him toward an unknown destiny. The hands inside the watch suddenly began to indicate directions like a compass. With only a water flask and a small amount of dry food as his belongings, Anand set out on a long journey. He had to cross dense, dark forests where the roars of wild animals constantly terrified him. Next, he had to traverse a vast, scorching desert. Even when his throat was parched with thirst, he refused to give up. Along the way, he faced many temptations. Many sorcerers offered him immense wealth in exchange for the watch, but Anand held onto his honesty. This long journey, spanning over years, exhausted him mentally and physically, but the good soul inside him never wavered. Finally, after long hardships, Anand arrived at the peak of a massive snow-covered mountain. Hidden there was an abandoned, cursed palace. Upon entering the palace, he saw a stone statue with a hollow space in its chest, exactly the size of the silver watch. As Anand went to place the watch into the hollow, a mystical witch appeared. The witch said, "If you place this watch here, you will turn into stone, but all mankind will be freed from disease and poverty." Anand did not hesitate for a single moment. Disregarding his own life, and thinking only of the welfare of humanity, he placed the watch into the statue's chest. But the very next moment, a miracle happened. A brilliant light illuminated everything. Anand did not turn into stone. Instead, the witch, like mystical entity, transformed into a benevolent angel. The angel smiled and said, "I was only testing your selflessness. Despite countless hardships, you did not lose your honesty and were ready to give your life for others." With the angel's blessing, the old palace transformed into a golden palace. All of Anand's exhaustion vanished, and he was proclaimed the king of a vast kingdom. Not only that, but because of Anand's selfless sacrifice, long-lasting peace and prosperity descended upon the entire world. Anand spent the rest of his life serving the people, and thus, after a long and difficult journey, the story reached a beautiful and happy ending.
Exactly 100 years ago, in the year 1926, in a foggy mountainous village located in a remote region of India, lived a calm and patient young man named Samir. Samir loved spending hours in old libraries. One day, in a dark corner of the library, inside a hidden, dusty drawer, he found an ancient, leather-bound diary. Opening the diary, he was astonished. It described a lost, mystical valley that becomes visible to human eyes for only a brief period every 100 years. Following the map, Samir entered a forest so dense that sunlight had never touched its ground. The forest was utterly silent, except for the occasional soft rustling of leaves and the distant chirping of crickets. Samir walked for days and nights continuously. The trees inside this forest were colossal, covered in a strange, glowing blue moss that dispelled the darkness of the night with a soft, soothing light. As he walked, his shoes tore apart, and his physical strength began to deplete rapidly. Yet, he did not stop. When he finally sat down under a massive tree out of exhaustion, a mystical deer appeared before him. The deer's eyes were as bright as stars, seemingly waiting to guide Samir. Samir stood up once more and began to follow the gentle glow. This walk was incredibly long and lonely, testing the absolute limits of his patience. As the forest ended, a vast, endless desert stretched before Samir. But this was no ordinary desert. There was no wind, and absolutely no sound. It was known as the Desert of Silence. Walking through here, all of a person's negative thoughts, fears, and past sorrows would manifest in their mind. When Samir reached the middle of the desert, he envisioned all the lost memories and hardships of his life. He felt as though he wouldn't survive, that all this long suffering might be in vain. Right then, he touched the diary in his pocket and calmed his mind.
Closing his eyes, he took a deep, steady breath, conquered his fears, and moved forward. At the very edge of the desert, he found a massive stone gate shrouded in thick fog. An old gatekeeper sat before it. The old man said, "To pass through this gate, you must sacrifice the most valuable thing you possess." Samir smiled and handed over his beloved ancient diary, knowing that reaching the destination was more important than holding on to the guide.
As the stone gate ground open, Samir's eyes were dazzled. He found himself standing in a heavenly valley. All around, rivers of deep blue water flowed, emitting a supernatural soothing fragrance. Nestled on the mountain slopes was an ancient city, where houses made of gold and crystal glistened in the warm evening light. The people of the city were incredibly kind, with no trace of sorrow on their faces. The moment they saw Samir, they welcomed him with immense warmth. Hearing the story of Samir's honesty, enduring patience, and ultimate sacrifice, the king of the valley embraced him. The king proclaimed that Samir would be the new guardian of this valley. Instantly, all of Samir's exhaustion, the wounds on his feet, and the long-held sorrows of his mind vanished. He spent the rest of his life in absolute happiness within that calm, magical city. Peace reigned over the entire world, and thus, after a tremendously long, difficult, yet beautiful journey, Samir's life reached a deeply peaceful and happy ending.